Now that you know all about us, our job is done. We can go home, right? Well, good afternoon. I am LaCory Meadows, and I am excited to be in front of you today. Can you hear me okay? I need to use this in order for it to be recorded, correct? Okay. All right. I'm excited to be before you today. My colleagues and I are going to, in this presentation, really focus in on a on-the-ground approach in our strategies around building relationships with elected officials. And it's more of a precursor than anything to the lunch that we have going on today. So we hope that you find some value in what we have to share. Before we get started, I would like to provide some information around how we're situated within OSU Extension. We are, unlike our other 85 colleagues across the state, whereas we serve as 100% administrators. So we do not have a programmatic responsibility that's aligned with our role, but we're really truly responsible for the administrative side of things. So connecting with community organizations, connecting with elected officials, helping to ensure we have the fiscal stability in our counties to make sure that we can be sustained over the long haul. Each of us has a county commissioner organization. We have a board here in Franklin County, and I believe in Hamilton there's a board as well. And Nicole mentioned earlier that they have a county council, which is set up a little bit different from the experience that Deb and I have in both Franklin and Hamilton County. And as you can imagine, most of you are from urban context, so we have very complex political environments that we have had to learn how to navigate in very complex political structures as well. So what's the issue? As we think about connecting with various legislative officials, at least from my perspective, I've come to know quickly that they are incredibly busy individuals. They have multiple agendas, multiple tasks, multiple priorities on their desk at any given time. So what I found important, at least in my job, is to figure out how do we cut through all the clutter, all of the various agenda items that are in some ways competitors are putting on their desks. How do we cut through those things in order to connect the dots for them? So it's not about just going in and say, okay, we do this, we do that, but how do you connect the dots for them long term so that they can then support you in a long haul? So setting agendas, and by agenda, don't want to just focus in on going in and sitting with an elected official. An agenda could be the organic conversation that happens at the coffee shop, or the organic conversation that happens when you go to a neighborhood event. There's many different opportunities for you to interact with various legislative officials, so it's important to always have some type of agenda in mind. One of the things that I've learned too is, and would love to hear from my colleagues as well, is understanding that playground politics, right? So I have a 7-year-old and one of the things I've learned from her that although she's 7, there's a lot of politics going on in that playground, right? So whether you're 7 or 47, there's still human dynamics at play, right? Know the players, know the supporters, know the naysayers. But some of the things that Gwen talked about earlier is just being cognizant and being aware of various media outlets to find out additional information. Utilizing technology. One of my greatest friends is Google Alerts. I have all of our various elected officials on a Google Alert. I have Franklin County Extension on a Google Alert. So anything that pops up, it's right there in my inbox, and I'm able to read it that way. Know what types of organizations and initiatives they have supported in the past. One of the things that, and I'm going to turn this over to my colleagues too, that I found helpful as a county director is really chasing the crumbs, right? A piece that I have a meeting coming up on Wednesday with one of our commissioners. Really excited about this opportunity. I came across a document that spelled out all of the various organizations that have been supported by the same block of funds that we're supported by. Sent Julie, who serves as my supervisor, email with like bug eyes, like, oh my God, can you believe that this is accessible? So really excited about that. But again, it helped me to figure out, where are the crumbs going to? Who should we be partnering with in the future? Because where the money goes, that helps for you to determine where the priorities are. So, ladies, do you have any examples of any of those things that we've talked about?
This is a true story. In talking about the sandbox experience, what's the Boy Scouts, what's their motto? Be also ready, be prepared, be prepared. We had an opportunity, one of our FNET educators was in the building, FNET. Larry said don't use those initials, but we all know what they are. Was in the building doing a cooking service for refugees. And one of the county commissioners was in the same building. Well, he smelled the food. And he wanted to know what was going on, okay? I took that opportunity to introduce myself via letters, like, heard you smelled the food, like to get to know you and tell you more about Extension. And that was my door opener in Hamilton County. And we had not been in that door for 3 years. That opportunity got my foot in the door, and I am holding it open like this. So.
She literally is.
I think for me, again, I have a background with Cuyahoga County. I was there for 11 years before coming over to Extension. So I started as an intern, and so I grew within that system. So I have some of those relationships, but I was thrown for a huge loop when they changed the county structure. So not only am I going through trying to figure out how to now navigate amongst, it's 11 council members, along with the county executive. I already know like the staff people, but they're working for 11 new people. So it's been very challenging because the system is still trying to figure out itself. I'm glad you mentioned knowing what types of organizations and initiatives have been funded in the past. So as a can't say I'm brand new anymore, newer CED, just knowing what had been funded, what they would like to fund, right? Again, working with 11 different people, it's just kind of hard to even see where they stand. But I do think in the long run, just knowing from a historical perspective what they're interested in and getting to know them on a personal level has helped me more than actually attending some of the council meetings. Like, they see my face, but if they don't know who I am and don't know that we both like pizza, then it's kind of hard to not only engage them, but maintain their attention.
Thank you. Okay, so now that we've taken a look and considered those that we're seeking to connect with, I think it's also important to take a look in the mirror, right? Take a look from a 360-degree point of view. Who are your supporters? Who are your naysayers? Because just similar to you having the desire to get across the desk and speak with these elected officials, so do they, right? So having an understanding of who they are and their value proposition is critically important. Who does similar work as you? So thinking about that 360-degree angle, who's alongside you? Who's doing some similar things? An example here in Franklin County, 2 examples I would say would be an organization called Local Matters, who's doing wonderful work across Franklin County, but some of the things are very similar to what we do. So it is our job to then understand how to articulate what our value proposition is in comparison to Local Matters. Another organization, Franklin Park Conservatory. If you all are going to be here for dinner, I believe it's on Wednesday night or it's Wednesday night. Okay. That's another phenomenal organization who does very similar work as us as well. So how does Extension stand out and make itself relevant in comparison to some of the things that's happening in those spaces? Another piece that I have learned quickly is understanding who's in your blind spot, right? who are those people who, while, well-intentioned, are really trying to take your space, right? So understanding that, yes, that they might be on their way, right? And they may have the capacity to do so. So how do you make sure that you have your ground really set so that they will not have the opportunity to do that? And then there's others who has an idea what you do, but really no strategy or no capacity. And it doesn't mean that they won't never have it, but it's important to know that those folks are there as well. Okay, another major thing, and many of you probably are already very much aware of this, but again, this is kind of an on-the-ground kind of perspective. Refrain from the yes syndrome. So I think one of the lessons learned as being a new county extension director was, oh my gosh, I get to meet with Commissioner X. Oh, I want to show that we're able to do X, Y, Z, A, B, C, and 1, 2, and 3. That's not always the case, right? So being prepared beforehand, how you desire to position yourself is key. Know the objectives of your value proposition. And before saying yes, be certain that you can deliver, right? So you don't want to say you're going to do something and then aren't able to do it. Assess your personal or team capacity or willingness. And if you say yes, deliver early and deliver correctly, okay? So as we think about positioning, I want to use some corporate examples here. So when you think about Walmart, what is one of the first words or two that comes to mind? Cheap, okay. What else do you guys think about?
Lower prices.
Lower prices, okay, similar to cheap. What else? Just cheap. Box store, okay, all right. All right. What about Toyota? Quality, okay. Do we have some history with Toyota? Remember the freight issue, right? Okay, there were some things that happened back there, so they had to rebuild their reputation. What about Mercedes-Benz in comparison to Toyota? Money, right? Luxury, quality car. Okay, excellent. All right, well, let's take a look at some more. What's the first one? What's the next one? The next? Okay, next. Next one?
Angry Bird.
Huh? Twitter. Okay. What is the difference between this slide and this slide? Words. Exactly. Exactly. These companies have spent billions of dollars and a lot of intention around making sure that you and I can sit in this room today and name each one of these organizations without saying a word. Okay? Follow me here. Let's think about our position. We have to be very intentional around making sure that we're positioned in a way with our respective legislators so that we are that organization that they come to for these various things, right? Positioning is key, right? So it's about intention. So let's think a little bit strategically, and Gwen touched on this earlier as well. Positioning yourself to capitalize on timely decisions and or funding opportunities, right? So we know what our expertise levels are, right? Water quality, we talked about that earlier. Water quality is a big one. Everybody's aware of the Flint, Michigan water crisis, correct? A couple of years ago, we had an issue here in Ohio in the Toledo area around algae blooms. Positioning ourselves. How do we become that BP? Then we don't have to say a word, but folks are picking up the phone and calling an extension for help in this regard, right? Infant mortality is a major issue here in Ohio. Franklin County has some of the highest infant mortality rates in the country. Albeit a very sad situation, I'll give you an example of something that happened here in Franklin County. The city decided to start an initiative called Celebrate One. Lots of attention, lots of spotlight on Celebrate One, lots of attention, a lot of spotlight on infant mortality issues. So we have a program that came actually from Cuyahoga and called Produce Prescription. So as a result of knowing that this was an issue and knowing that extension could help in that regard, at CED, I was very intentional around positioning ourselves to help move the needle on this issue. Hence now, extensions in the spotlight as it relates to infant mortality and a connection with Celebrate One. All right? So again, just thinking about position. Also, once your position has become established, think like a marketer. Remind and follow up. So who uses Tide here? Anybody use Tide detergent? Okay. I use it because Procter & Gamble is my hometown, was located in my hometown, so I try to support Cincinnati. But who's familiar with Tide, right? Has Tide stopped making commercials about Tide, although everybody here knows it, right? They continue to do it. They continue to offer that. Any thoughts, ladies?
I'd like to give an example. Sometimes, I like what you said up there, but sometimes the powers that be, the commissioners in our case, what they may bring as an issue might be singularly focused and not something that Ohio State may or may not be interested in. Like, for example, we had something recently on our ballot regarding a medical marijuana. I mean, Ohio State, are we ready for that? And it was idea of not so much of the plant itself, but the byproducts of it, the hemp plant. And I'm just like, I don't know if we can do that or talk about that, or if they're interested in that, or how does that look, as a whole, as a university. So how do we handle something like that?
Okay, so going back to that 360-degree evaluation, sometimes it's appropriate to consider partners, right, as you're going forth to make a request. So building a team around a request, again, let's go back to the Tide analogy. Tide has partnered with Downy, right? Same company, but some customers really like the quality of Tide. Some customers love the softness of Downy. Why not put it together, right? So for us in Franklin County, maybe that partnership looks like, let's do something with Franklin Park Conservatory. Commissioners here love Franklin Park Conservatory. You can see it in the crumb trail, right? Funding is going to them. So that might be a good way to go forth to try to help solve an issue. Who's on the who's who whom you're connected? Who's on the who's who whom you're connected to? Sorry, that's a mouthful. So one of the things that we've been very fortunate with here, and I'm sure Nicole and Deb have examples of that as well, is our Extension Advisory Committee. They are wonderful groups of people. One of the individuals who serves on our committee just happens to be a CEO of one organization here in Columbus who knows just about everybody. So because she knows all of these folks, that gives us in some way a connection to these individuals as well. So partnering with them may be of some assistance. What connection do those who are Team Extension have with your target audience? So who are those people that's in the background cheering for us? How do we get connected with those individuals? And what is your preparation as you prepare for these conversations tell you about other possible linkages? Remember, it's not always about who you know. It's also about who knows you and what they're willing to communicate about you. All right? So you want to have those cheerleaders. And lastly, another extension of Extension is your advisory committee. I mentioned that earlier. They're ready-made advocates for your organization. Once in place, be sure they drink the Kool-Aid. I'll give you another example. I'll say his name, Bob Leakty. He's a pretty strong community advocate here in Columbus. And on last week, he's like, LaCorey, I've drunk the Kool-Aid. I'm like, I'm using that in my presentation. And so I told him, I said, you know what, I've got your nameplate ready. I need to get an office for you here because he is just gung-ho, and Brian knows him. He's gung-ho about Extension and the work that we do. Another thing, if you're building, and this was mainly for Extension directors, if you're building an advisory committee or thinking of replacing people on advisory committees, one of the things that I often ask the team that I work with is, let's not think about today. Let's think 5, 10, 20 years down the line. what do we want to accomplish? What does our community need more importantly than what it is that we're thinking, what does the community need? And how do we ensure that we have people in place that can help us to get there? Identifying gaps, media, banking, medical. Do you need somebody to help you get the word out? Placing people in the community that would do that. And then also equip them well to sing like a hummingbird about your organization, all right? Making sure that they're not only being an advocate of your work, but also knowing the appropriate information to share. Ladies, you have anything? No? Okay.
We have a new Extension Advisory Committee, and all the things that she have listed here, I'm running through my mind, and those are some of the things that I look for. I actually asked the staff to recommend those people who they thought would be good for our advisory committees. We also have people politically connected on our advisory committee. We need those people to go forward. In fact, this year in Hamilton County, we probably had our biggest group at the legislative luncheon that we ever had, and those people are from our advisory committee.
It was wonderful to see them. Okay, so in summary, success is where preparation and opportunity meet. Again, connecting those dots, understanding the playground politics, who's going to help you build that sandcastle, who might come over and say, maybe, maybe not, and then who's going to kick it down, right? So understanding that as well, or who's going to try to kick it down. Connecting the dots to position your organization and prep your supporters to hum and connect the dots on your behalf, all right?